Yeah, this one probably the most surprising result in all of the first leg matches. Club Brugge losing at home 2-0 to Benfica, and we actually have the highlights of the first leg to show you.
Here's the word to describe Club Brugge's Champions League campaign so far. Facing Benfica over 2 legs. Arsnes. Penalty here for Benfica. And João Mario gives Benfica a long overdue breakthrough. It is. He's let Ramirez in, and he shows no mercy. Job done for Benfica. They win in the early Bruges score.
For the first time in their 119-year history, Benfica could reach the quarterfinals of the Champions League in back-to-back seasons. And weren't they dominant in that first leg? They had 22 shots as opposed to Club Brugge's 11. Eric, were you impressed by how they performed in that first leg?
Yeah, impressed is the right word. Maybe not surprised, but definitely impressed. And that was away from home. And I think their home record speaks for itself. I think they have more than 20 matches unbeaten at home at this stage. So yeah, Benfica has been in good form and has continued to be in good form in the league as well as in the Champions League, and continue to display it as well. So definitely been impressed with them this season.
Are they going to be even more dangerous at home, you think, Juan?
Well, yeah, they're going to be much more dangerous at home. I mean, these are two teams that find themselves going in opposite directions, because Benfica in 2023 have only lost once. They lost the Taça de Portugal match against Sporting Brugge in penalties, mind you. That's the only match that they've lost. They haven't. They Rademacher said they haven't lost. You know, their winning streak or their unbeaten streak is just amazing right now. On the other end, we have a Club Brugge that's only won 2 out of their last 13. Scott Parker's on the hot seat as well. There's a lot of uncertainty that's going on at a club that historically, within the realm of Belgian football, you start to see a bit more of uncertainty, because what's going on with this team? Is this team going to be able to maintain itself? Is this, you know, where is it going into 2023, 2024? And to have such a problem ends up being, well, part of how they've been able to play. If you've seen the Belgian league, they've struggled in a lot of facets of play.
Eric, João Mario now up to 20 goals. Previously, his best season was 7 goals, and all of a sudden he's on the verge of making history. He could become the first Benfica player since Eusebio in the 1960s to score in 5 successive Champions League matches. He's been in some good form.
Yeah, I mean, that's a name to really be very proud of if you can put your name beside of it. I mean, I think Benfica has been great as a club in general over the last few decades, and I think we just talked about Dortmund and really saying it's not one player or one coach that allows this to happen. It's really the structure of a club. And I think Benfica is a very good example of that one. If you look at the structure of the club and how they set themselves, where their focus is, you're always going to see players, whether it's new players coming up out of the youth leagues or whether it's a player who didn't make it somewhere, come back and perform very well. And I think it's really the stable club and the stable environment that allows these players like João Mario, who might not be known as a top goal scorer, to have a season like this where he really has the right energy, right chemistry with his teammates to score 20+ goals.
Juan, I know you spoke about the fact that they'll be even more dangerous at home, but in the first leg I got the impression that they played as if they had nothing to lose. Now they do, and it's called a 2-goal advantage. How do they play with this in mind?
Trying to make it 3, first and foremost. Well, no, I mean it sounds you know, pretentious, but that's the way you end up killing off these ties. If you end up getting on a team, like I said before with Chelsea, the same thing applies with Club Brugge. If you end up, you know, taking a 2-0 advantage from their own backyard into yours, and you're able to make it 3-0 on aggregate, it's pretty much lights out. It's very hard for them to mentally be able to get back into the game, to get back into that mindset, to try and score 4 on you at that point to advance to the next round. And especially a team that has been as solid and as confident as Benfica, well, it makes things doubly as difficult for the Belgians. That's for sure.
Well, let's now get into the opposition half now and hear what the Club Brugge manager, Scott Parker, what he had to say about this second leg.
Look, I think like anything, I think Noah mentioned it before. This is firstly, it's a huge challenge for us ahead. That's very clear in terms of what we face and what we're up against. We look back at the first game, and in terms of where we was in the first game, I thought it was very competitive. Goal disallowed, and it was a real tight game. The game was decided on two mistakes, really, when you look at it. But for parts of that game, and large parts of that game, we was very competitive in every bit of how we performed. Now, of course, the scoreline's a scoreline for tomorrow night's game, but we come here with one huge challenge ahead of us, one challenge that we're relishing as a team and as a football club, and hopefully we can, football takes care of itself if we can get on the right end of something here and come with a real momentum and a real understanding of what we're here and the occasion of what we're facing here. I hope that we can bring a real challenge in this game, really.
Club Brugge, or Club Brugge if you prefer, was a surprise package in the group phase, but Carl Hufkins was in charge then. Scott Parker has since replaced him, and there hasn't been significant improvement onto his watch. Still, he could become the third English manager behind Harry Redknapp and Craig Shakespeare to actually reach the Champions League quarterfinals, although I don't think that's on his mind too much, Eric.
No, I mean, you hear him almost speak it into being, the positivity. It was a competitive match aside from the two mistakes with the goal, and yes, Club Brugge has their moments, and they do have quality still on the field individually, and they have a certain understanding on how they want to play the game, as we saw before the knockout stages in the group phases where they were doing really well. But at the end of the day, something has broken in their manager switch, and to be honest, we even look at the weekend, they lost 3-0 to a team that they're not supposed to lose to. And it's, at this stage, as he finished off, they're hoping for a good result, because I think they're not expecting it again at this stage.
Yeah, alarm bells would have been ringing, Juan, in the aftermath of that result on Friday when they went down 3-0 to a team battling relegation in the Belgian Pro League. And again, the defensive mistakes have been prevalent, and it showed up against Oostende on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. They did, and it seemed like after they beat Ghent a couple of weeks ago, it seemed like they had turned the corner. But yeah, in Eric, I can coincide with him. It seemed like you see Scott Parker almost trying to manifest his way into trying to make his team play well again. Keep in mind they're also 21 points off the pace, and everything else that has been nothing short of a nightmarish season for a team that usually is in first or second place in their league on a consistent basis. So, I mean, there's really not much else to say. You also mentioned it, Donald, that there is a lot of defensive mistakes, defensive lapses as well, in every single game, which end up in some really complicated situations.
Let's expound a little bit more on those defensive mistakes that were made in the first leg, because you gave them as gifts at home, and it's going to be at a much higher temperature come the second leg.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, two moments, but when we look at that first one, where really the defender is standing still in the box while the ball is coming towards, then the attacker moves towards the ball. And if you're not engaged as a defender, if you're not sharp in the moment there to make sure you reach in front of the attacker, you're going to make these mistakes. I think it's right here that we see it. Waiting, attacker comes towards the ball, and then you cannot expect this at this level. You have to come towards the ball and play at a higher pace, because these mistakes are going to happen, and it's not because the defender made a mistake, it's because he's not sharp enough defensively. And then when we look at the second goal, which I'm sure we're going to see, it is a bad touch combined. It's a three-man defense, and one player from Benfica being able to get the ball from them. As you pointed out, here we see that moment here. And is this a pass? Is this a touch? This has to be much quicker and sharper as defender. Just get a one touch back to the keeper, out of the pressure, into the space. But they're not. And as you said, over the weekend they've made, I don't want to say similar, but also defensive mistakes. And you wonder, Benfica that can play at a very high pace, very active forwards, can they actually keep it solid in the back? Because as was just mentioned before, if Benfica scores 1, Club Brugge has to score 4.
And that's the thing, and Michele has been the chief architect of their downfall on, well, of course, in the first leg and on Friday when they played in the Pro League. and he really has to sharpen up himself in order for the back line to have any security.
Yeah, and as you say, Brendan McKelly plays centre-back, and even more so in a three-man back line. You have to have a solid performance from your centre-backs, and not just on the ball, but you want them to make the team feel we have this covered in the back. And when you come off mistakes in previous matches like this, you wonder how is that feeling amongst the team with how secure the back line really is.
We're going to see the starting lineups of both teams in just a little while, and we're going to start off with Benfica. But Juan, you mentioned this already in terms of the style of play that they must have to get that third goal, which is critical in this overall tie.
Yeah, they have to, and that's what helps Benfica out. Of course, there is the X factor of how those few minutes start off and how Club Brugge ends up attacking. But in that attacking, in the need to go forward and score, they do open up a lot of spaces. And if in a situation when they were at home and didn't have that pressure against this same Benfica side, who quote unquote didn't have anything to lose, well, then you end up putting yourself in even a more precarious situation. Therefore, you have to have an even more concentrated group of players who haven't been concentrated in a great amount of time. I mean, and also let's add one more thing. Since the month of September of last year, Club Brugge have only won 4 times away from home in all competitions. So that again is another trend that does not help them in any way.
Is there something specific that you're expecting from Benfica at home this afternoon?
I mean, I expect them to play with patience. Even though they love the fast game, I expect them to have more patience. They know they have a 2-goal lead. They know they're at home. They're playing against a team that most likely will make some mistakes here and there that they can pound on. So I expect them to play with patience, but once they reach in that passing game and the game kind of speed up, they can be very fast. So I'm looking forward to the forward players. I was hoping to see David Neres. It's always a very exciting player for me to watch, but he's on the bench. But they have enough players up there. I would say João Mario is in great form, so see how if he can continue that in this game. But I'm looking forward to that fast game once they reach in that. Have composure on the ball, but once they get the ball to speed up, it's a joy to watch. So that's what I'm hoping to see today.
They are going to be pushed by the crowd, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the Portuguese fans, their football to them is a religion, and we might not know much about it because the league is not really as much promoted, but let me tell you, the Portuguese, these matches are very important to them, and even though they might be heavy favourites, the fans will make sure that they will be sharp from the start.
Juan, I'm a little bit scared for Club Brugge. Based on what happened on Friday, they have adjusted their back line. They are now going to be playing with a back 5 or a back 3, if you will. On Friday, they played with a back 4. But Michele is still there. It's still the typical protagonist there. What are you thinking in terms of how they can go through this storm, really, that they're going to face?
Well, they have to be the ones that create the storm. It's not the ones that they're not the ones that have to endure the storm. They have to be the storm in order for them to fulfill the pretensions of being able to advance into the quarterfinals. If they just end up having this bunker mentality, there's no way they're going to win. They've already lost coming onto the pitch. Let's put it that way. So if we kind of switch the mentality of it, yes. If they're going to lose, at this point, if they lose 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 on aggregate, but just, enduring, it doesn't help you much in terms of giving a good impression. If they at least go and attack and you see them trying to be more proactive offensively, that's a different story. But right now, all we can do is exactly what you're doing right now, Donald, which is saying, well, what are they going to do? Are they just going to sit back and hold on for dear life or what? That's the big question, especially against a team that not only is going to drop back in weight and drop back in pounds, but they also have to be careful too because they have 4 players coming into this match on yellow card caution. They can't afford to lose any of the 4 in order to go into the next round.
Benfica will be playing with a 4-2-3-1 formation in this one, Eric. And again, not a lot of surprises in the starting lineup as we see here.
No, and we've been talking about centre-backs and how they can lead, and Otamendi is a great example that you love to have in the back line. As I say, I love to look at the top 4. As I say, I was expecting maybe Neres instead of Arsenis, but with Rafa, Arsenis, João Mario and Gonzalo Ramos, you really have a front 4 that once they get it going, it's exciting to look at. So it's not a surprise really in this lineup. We've been seeing a lot of these names consistently throughout the season, and this team from Club Brugge.
With the back 3, as I said.
Yeah. So individually, I think players have to really perform. Mignolet has to have a great game, I think, for them to get something out of this. Van Aken is the next one in the midfield that I feel he has to have a good game if they want to mean something. And then I look at Noah Long and Buchanan on the right side, where I'm guessing they really try to attack that right side with two lively players there and hope to create something from there.
Predictions, quickly. What are your thoughts?
I give it a 3-1 to Benfica.
3-1. All right. Juan?
Well, not as much, because it'll probably end up being a little bit more slow tempo if Benfica scores 1-0.
1-0. Actually,
Yep.
they may get a hiding. Club Brugge. Let's see if that actually turns out to be true, but 1-0. All right, well, that's pretty much it for this preview, and we look ahead to what's to come over the next 90 minutes or so. Remember that we're back at halftime for this one. We now join our feed at the Estadio da Luz as they look ahead to this big one.